say the frustration level is very high with every single governor in that room.
West Coast governors struggling to manage an influx of migrants in their states are pleading for help at the White House. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to West Coast Wrap. I'm Alex Savage. Those governors are hoping today's meeting with President Biden will lead to border policy changes. That face-to-face with the president happened as 34 governors gathered at the White House today for the National Governors Association winter meeting. The president urged all of the governors who were on hand to put pressure on their congressional representatives to support a bipartisan bill on border security.
It funds what many of you governors need to help shelter migrants as a win for the future of the American people and a win for your states. But then, as we all know, petty politics intervened. The Speaker of the House has refused to vote on the bill, even though, again, there's significant support. Folks, doing nothing is not an option. Compromise is part of the process.
The president says he is exploring executive actions he can potentially take to address issues at the border.
This is a problem that governors can't solve, although we're trying as much as we can. This really is on the federal government. There's some disagreement on how much the president can do and can't do, and I push back on the president on that. But I think there's also general consensus that the Congress does have to do something.
What we don't want is people who don't qualify clogging up that system and causing 6-7 year delays for those who have legitimate legal ability to be here. So that's really been a focus of the discussion between Republicans and Democrats in Congress. Those asylum reforms would be a big plus.
At this point, there is no firm timeline on when President Biden may take executive action when it comes to immigration. For more perspective on this ongoing debate and what may come next here, we're joined tonight by Bill Hing, a professor of law and migration studies at the University of San Francisco and author of the book Humanizing Immigration. Professor, thank you, as always, for the time. We heard these calls today from the president calling on governors across the country, and especially here in the West, to pressure lawmakers to try to revive that bipartisan border bill that died in Congress. How effective do you believe this strategy may be? Is there a chance of getting this kind of legislation through Congress?
Well, I think there is a chance because there was actually strong bipartisan support among both parties for this deal that was struck by a Republican, a Democrat, and Kyrsten Sinema of Arizona, the independent, until Donald Trump basically instructed Republicans to not support the bill. But there was strong support for it, and so I think that there is a chance that governors who have a lot of credibility on this issue might influence the outcome.
Yeah, and you talk about the credibility that these governors have on this particular issue, and that's due in large part to the fact that we have seen a lot of cities and states all across the country, not just along the border, really struggling to address an influx of migrants and provide those people services. How have we seen kind of the dynamics of this immigration debate changing in this country?
Well, there was a time when it was very clear that only the federal government had the authority to regulate immigration. But now, beginning with Arizona more than 10 years ago, and now especially Texas, legislation has been passed at the state level to really try to close the borders. And so this is going to be headed to the Supreme Court eventually on whether or not states have the authority to erect fences, to prosecute people for trespass, and to arrest people and turn them over to the Border Patrol or to ICE. And they definitely are influencing the discussion and the images of the border to the American public.
Let me ask you about the reports that President Biden, now that this bipartisan border security bill is clearly going nowhere at this point in Congress, the president reportedly considering a plan to use a number of executive actions to potentially limit asylum claims at the border. Talk about how much authority the president potentially has under federal law to limit the number of migrants coming into the country.
Well, he's been talking about a section of the law that's been in existence for decades that Donald Trump used. It's called Section 212F of the law that allows the president to close the border or to keep out migrants who the president believes are a danger to the country. And Trump used that successfully to get the Supreme Court to approve his Muslim ban, for example. And there were several other things that Trump tried in that name. But then ultimately, Trump didn't have to do anything because of COVID, and he instituted Title 42. So right. President Biden is thinking of using that provision. I do think that the Supreme Court may defer to him when he does this, because they've been deferring to presidential authority on immigration priorities of late. And this is going to be challenged, of course, right. Over the definition of whether or not these migrants are a danger or not.
Yeah, so, I mean, what do you believe that we obviously don't know exactly what executive actions the president may take specifically, but do you believe these actions would survive legal challenges?
I think that they would, given the makeup of the Supreme Court. They really are in a mood to defer to presidential action when it comes to immigration, and that's all based on the change in the makeup of the court and the history with Trump when he invoked these. Now, I want you to know that personally, I disagree with what the president is contemplating, because he's basically ignoring the human factor, that he wants to make immigration, asylum, very, very difficult. And I don't think that that's consistent with our international obligations. And so that is going to be key to whether or not the Supreme Court goes along with this. It's, can the president act, but can he act in a way that might violate our international obligations?
Yeah, and the other question is, how would the president unilaterally putting these executive actions in place to address issues at the border, how would that look different in terms of funding and in terms of resources from Congress taking action and putting together bipartisan legislation?
That's a really good question, because right now the president is using all the resources that he has at the border. And so it's true, even if he uses an executive order, does he have the personnel to actually implement it? And that's tied up right now in the legislation that the Senate had proposed, had put on the table. And so you're absolutely right. It's one thing to issue an executive order, but it's whether or not you have the resources to back it up. And it doesn't look like that's happening right now.
And that's where Congress comes into play. We appreciate your perspective. As always, really good to see you. That is University of San Francisco Professor Bill Hing. Thank you so much for the time. Have a good weekend.
Thank you.
The U.S. military is tracking a small balloon that's flying at high altitude over the western United States. This was spotted by a military aircraft over Utah and determined not to be a threat. It is still unclear tonight where that balloon came from or what its purpose is. Last year, you'll remember, a Chinese spy balloon was spotted passing over the U.S. Eventually, it was shot down off the coast of South Carolina. In California, Los Angeles socialite Rebecca Grossman has been convicted of second-degree murder and other charges for running down two young boys in Westlake Village back in 2020. She was found guilty late today on all 5 counts, including 2 counts of second-degree murder and vehicular manslaughter with gross negligence. The mother of 2 young boys spoke to reporters after that verdict.
My family, we've been waiting for this for 3.5 years now. We've been waiting to trust the justice system. So today we're just giving glory to God, the God of Mark and Jacob. He's been with us through that time. He helped us through. He carried us. We are also super thankful for our prosecution. They've worked tirelessly, 3.5 years. They went above and beyond they only cared about the truth.
And sentencing in this case is set to happen in April. Grossman could face up to 34 years to life in prison. Tonight, authorities in California's Central Valley are investigating a crash that killed 8 people today. It happened in rural Madera County, about 25 miles northwest of Fresno. The California Highway Patrol says a van carrying farm workers crashed head-on into a pickup truck. 7 people in that van died, along with the driver of the pickup. All of the victims were men. Several of them were from Mexico, according to authorities. Tonight, the CHP is investigating exactly what caused that deadly crash. Seattle police are searching tonight for the driver responsible for running over two people who thought they were safe on sidewalks, and authorities believe the same car was likely involved here. Fox 13's AJ Janavel spoke with investigators who say they have video of one of those crashes, but they're not quite ready to release it.
It's disgusting. It's just gross.
Doorbell footage I obtained shows the response to the hit and run in the Capitol Hill neighborhood from early Saturday morning. Records I got my hands on from police say a man was on the sidewalk in a sleeping bag when a blue sedan hopped the curb. There's tire marks here in this dirt patch near where police say this man was sleeping when the car ran him over.
The darkest side of human behavior.
I spoke to Johnny Boysher and several other people who work where the hit and run happened. They told me the victim's name is Chris. He's slept on the sidewalk here for years. They describe him as a nice person who didn't deserve this. An hour earlier, and less than 3 miles away from the Capitol Hill incident, a dark sedan hopped this curb in the South Lake Union neighborhood. Police records say a man walking down the street tried to hide behind this fire hydrant, but somehow the dark sedan still managed to navigate this tight space and hit the victim, then kept driving. These hit and runs come just a few months after two teens recorded themselves intentionally mowing down pedestrians in their car. I asked Seattle police if there's a concern for the public with a possible similar situation happening now, and why they didn't notify the community on social media or through their blog site about these two hit and runs. They told me they were too busy to speak on camera and did not answer my other questions.
And that was Fox 13's AJ Janavel reporting for us tonight. It remains unclear how the people involved in last week's crashes are doing. The victims of November's crashes suffered serious injuries. The teenagers arrested in connection with the November crashes were booked with assault, possession of a stolen vehicle, as well as hit and run with injuries. We are tracking some new problems developing as a result of those storms that hit California earlier this week. A new landslide shut down a portion of the Pacific Coast Highway in Malibu today. Crews were able to clear the highway and get the road reopened temporarily this afternoon. Then they shut it down again when more debris started to slide down that hill. Authorities are expecting on and off lane closures to continue all throughout the night.
Southern California theme there, looking out towards Santa Monica. Wow, a high temperature there today of 73 degrees after one of the rainiest Februarys ever. We will have the weather forecast with your Bay Area and West Coast wrap forecast.
Welcome to the Hotel California.
Well, the Eagles call it their interpretation of high life in Los Angeles. Coming up tonight, how Hotel California has become wrapped up in a criminal trial. Also, Las Vegas turns into a testing ground for a new driverless vehicle. See how remote drivers are moving these cars around town. Voters in Washington can start casting ballots in the state's presidential primary election. For now, ballots can be mailed or left in drop boxes set up across the state. Election day doesn't happen until March 12th in Washington. Utah lawmakers took a step today they hope will bring a Major League Baseball team to the state. A House committee advanced a bill designed to raise hotel and car rental taxes. That money would be used to help build a ballpark on the west side of Salt Lake City. Hotel owners, though, are raising concerns about the tax hike disproportionately affecting them. They're also warning that not all of the tax increases would be absorbed by out-of-state visitors. This bill now goes to the full House for a vote. Well, with the A's on the verge of potentially leaving Oakland, headed to Vegas, some local businesses are stepping up to put on a fan fest. This event is for fans of the A's, Oakland Roots, and Soul soccer clubs, as well as the Oakland Ballers of the newly launched Pioneer Baseball League. The A's haven't hosted a fan fest since 2019. For the last 3 years, fan groups, including the Oakland 68s and the Last Dive Bar, have organized unofficial A's fan fests. At least 6 breweries have announced they will be stepping up and helping out as sponsors after Drake's Brewery backed out at the last minute. This fan fest is set to happen tomorrow at Oakland's Jack London Square. Well, top skiers from all around the world will gather in the Sierra this weekend. They are set to compete in the Stiefel Palisades Tahoe Cup. More than 100 athletes representing 28 countries are participating. Of the more than 40 stops on the World Cup Ski Tour, this is one of only 4 happening here in the U.S. For more on the conditions those skiers will have up there in the mountains near Tahoe, let's bring in KTVU meteorologist Roberta Gonzalez, tracking what things are going to look like on the slopes. It looks like they're going to have some pretty decent weather for that competition.
Absolutely. Hey, first off, though, Alex,
yeah.
Skier or boarder?
For me, I'm a skier. I go way back skiing.
Old school.
And I tried boarding. It wasn't for me.
It wasn't. It wasn't a good thing. All right. Okay. Well, it's going to be gorgeous on Saturday. Clouding up on Sunday. By Monday, snow returns to the Great Lake Tahoe area. Let's head now from the slopes to the ocean. Wow, what a day it was today in the Los Angeles basin and all around Southern California. Average high this time of the year in Los Angeles is 70 degrees. Today, 79, and we're still banking on Southern California, primarily Los Angeles, seeing one of the wettest Februaries on record dating back to 1848. All right, San Francisco today, just stellar. Average high 61 degrees today, top it off at 66 degrees. It was gorgeous up and down the coast of California and all the way to the Pacific Northwest. Average high in Seattle this time of the year's mid-40s. Instead, 52 degrees. It was beautiful. All right, we do have a shield of clouds offshore. We also have right now over the Denver area, backing through Grand Junction, clouds on the approach, but still it will remain snowless in Colorado. Las Vegas had a few high thin clouds today. Let's talk about the Pacific Northwest, so encroaching the clouds. And we also have cloud cover across that northwestern quadrant of the state of California. Bay Area today was mostly cloudy. Look at the green offshore. That is precipitation, but we refer to it as virga because it was evaporating before it hit the landmass due to the warmer air mass in place. Southern California, stream of clouds moving in and out. Phoenix, lots of sunshine today. And again, Vegas, a high temperature there today of 64 degrees. It was actually warmer in San Francisco than in Las Vegas. We do have that area of low pressure wrapping up off the immediate seashore, and as it does so, it will provide some cloud cover for Southern California as it inches closer, but not until Monday. So for the weekend, pretty much Saturday sunshine for the Pacific Northwest all the way to Southern California. Then by Sunday, we begin to cloud up. Rain showers. So look at that huge drop in Seattle by Monday. We will have some rain showers in San Francisco and in Los Angeles. Make it a great weekend.
All right, will do. Roberta, thank you. New technology is being tested right now in Las Vegas that reimagines the idea of driverless cars. Fox's Sunny Sai shows us how real drivers get behind the wheel of these cars remotely.
The biggest difference is that a human makes the decision and not a computer.
Vey cars are different from self-driving companies like Waymo because they have remote drivers. Vey is a German teledriving company that launched its first fully driverless fleet in Las Vegas.
That is basically an end-to-end, like a door-to-door mobility service, right? Don't have to walk to the car and don't have to park it, but you drive it yourself.
When you order a car, a teledriver uses cameras and sensors to guide it to your location. When you're done using it, the teledriver takes over and brings it back to Vey's headquarters.
Different mobility service, it's much more about providing an alternative to private car ownership rather than doing a robotaxi service.
The company has safeguards in case of emergencies.
When you think about maybe the electricity goes down here in the teledrive center and our backup generator also fails at the same time, so there's all these safety cases that you have to keep in mind. So, and if that happens, the vehicle always can come to a safe stop.
Vey teledrivers also get trained before taking the wheel.
First started with theory training, which was all just kind of more verbal, reading, going through slides, learning what the terms are and stuff like that, and then I went through a few weeks of private ground training, so we went to private lot and trained there, and then more training when it came to actually driving on a public street.
Transitioning from normal driving to teledriving is not always seamless.
The biggest issue I had was maybe the lack of feedback. We don't have, when you step on a throttle, you feel your car go back and stuff like that. We don't have that here, but we do have these lines that appear to kind of show us the G-force instead of you feeling it. So just kind of switching those two things around.
And that was Fox's Sunny Sai reporting tonight from Las Vegas. This technology is also being tested out right now in Europe. Coming up here on West Coast Wrap, the world's largest flight training center is now here in the West. We'll take you inside this Colorado facility coming up. New simulators are getting airline pilots ready to fly. Fox 31's Nicole Fierro takes us inside what is now the largest flight training center in the world.
We are sitting inside one of the new simulators in this new Denver building, but you probably wouldn't be able to tell. It looks like we're right here at the San Francisco runway. Now, these new simulators in this new building, they are going to be able to provide more training for 240 more pilots a day. We're about to take off and see exactly what they're doing.
You let me know when you're ready.
I am ready.
Okay. The brakes are released.
Taking off from the virtual San Francisco airport runway at United's new Denver Training Center building. Adding the ability to conduct more than 32,000 training events a year, to train up to 860 pilots a day. Experienced pilots like Captain Dennis Nelson leading us.
Every 9 months we come back for recurrent training.
Getting practice in all sorts of situations.
So we could have any fires, engine failures, electrical problems, hydraulic problems, and then we have checklists that we go through, and there's a proper way to go through those checklists.
Plus new pilots getting their start here before going in the air.
These are 737 MAX simulators. If you fly we have many 737 simulators, but we take somebody from their prior aircraft and we train them for 5 weeks, and the first time they are flying an actual airplane is with people on board. So these are that similar.
A milestone for United in the Mile High.
Building H represents opportunity for us. It represents training capacity that we will need to continue to fuel our growth.
Growth, with United adding 300 pilots to date this year, on top of the 2,300 pilots hired in 2023. What Mayor Mike Johnston sees as an opportunity in the city.
We're delighted about the fact that now that we have the largest flight training center in the world right here in this neighborhood, that means 17,000 pilots will be coming here every 9 months to help get training right here on the ground in Denver.
Practice putting pilots in a better position to make sure you're getting out of DIA to your destination safely.
Congratulations.
We did it. So there's 6 new simulators in this building today, and 6 more are on the way. So that's going to add up to 52 total simulators on this campus in Denver. Nicole Fierro, Fox 31.
An iconic Eagles song about life in Los Angeles is at the center of a new criminal trial.
Welcome to the Hotel California.
3 people are accused of scheming to sell the Eagles' handwritten lyrics to songs from the Hotel California album. Prosecutors say they lied to auction houses and buyers about how they obtained the lyrics. All of those suspects have pleaded not guilty. And that does it for West Coast Wrap tonight. We appreciate you watching. We'll see you back here next week. Have a good night.